So you've been a participant in the Arts of Bloom for how long?
I don't really know, maybe 3-4 years now, maybe 5. The wonderful thing. The best thing about being in Arts in Bloom, in addition to have people coming to your studio and seeing what it is that you do, and that in itself is a big reward. There's a lot of camaraderie amongst the artists. There's artists that I would have never known were in Salem County who I've become really good friends with. So it's not just the people of Salem County, not just showing off your art and letting people know something that you do, and they're right here in Salem County, but it's getting to know other artists. I started doing clay probably as a young child, because where we lived in East Brunswick, which is Middlesex County, the end of our road, there was a large drain pipe that went out to the sand pits. And where the drain pipe would leave, where it emptied, there was lots of gray clay. So that was the beginning, making clay things just for the sheer joy of making them, not knowing what I'm doing and why does it matter, you were just a kid, making acorn villages in the woods. So that's when it started in the very beginning and its roots. I did take a class in college. Didn't do very much with my class in college. Continued, had children, took a class at Rowan University. Didn't do much with that. Continued. Took a class at the University of the Arts, just one. She made a very interesting comment. She said, if you don't have to sell your work, don't sell it. Thought that was an interesting comment to make. She's absolutely right, because it really gives you a lot of time to grow as an artist. Did it on and off for many, many years. Clay can be a very frustrating material. There's a lot of science involved, and if you don't know the science, you don't always have success, and I'm just like everybody else. I didn't always have success. So when it got frustrating, I would quit, and I would go back, and when it got frustrating, I'd quit. As an adult, probably, I don't really know how old I was exactly. I know I was over 50. I went back to graduate school, and I went to Hood College in Frederick, Maryland, and I took a ceramics program, studio ceramics, and I have a Master's of Arts in studio ceramics. That answered all the questions, and I'm in a much better place because of taking a master's class and getting my master's in it, so that was a good thing.
So what was different about it?
Most of the work here you're going to see is either plant life, meaning leaves or trees, or you're going to see a lot of geese, and that's pretty much what I do. I especially like making the trees almost have this human-like form where these limbs almost look like their arms. Occasionally I put other kind of body parts hidden in there that other people might not see, but I happen to know they're there. So the trees, yes, they represent different stages of life, and some of them are small, some of them are larger, but to me they're just animated, and I think they're fun. So that's the trees. The geese are the same type of thing, where you have baby goslings, and then you have an older goose, and so they represent the many stages of life. So I like to have those. What I especially like with the geese, and I looked to see if I could find one beforehand, is I'm in the search, and it's a silly phrase, but I'm in the search of this ovarian eye. There's a very specific pattern that I learned about in Belarus through the internet, through talking to other overa artists on Facebook, the whole 9 yards. But this eye pattern is something that no one shares the secret of, and I'm on the quest of finding it. I'm pretty close to getting there, so that's a fun thing. So the geese, as much as these guys are beautiful, and I think these guys are lovely, they don't really have any eye pattern. So I love them for who they are, but I'm looking for the eye. So in the process I get lots of geese that are gorgeous and others that have the eye, which is what I'm looking for.
That's very interesting.
So
talk about this firing process that you use.
Overa is fascinating. It's where I found out about it is actually even more fascinating. I went to a friend's, Gail Scuderi's house, and when I went to her house, we were going there to raku. Now, raku firing is when you take something out of a kiln when it's red hot, about 1800 degrees, and you put it in a trash can with combustibles, pine needles, leaves, things of that sort. That's what I thought we were doing. And then on the side, she had this bucket of water that she was putting her pots in. It made no sense at all to me. She found out about it through Facebook, which again is one of those, how legitimate of a source is this? Turns out there's a gal from Great Britain who she is making overa, this firing process, known all throughout the entire world. She created a Facebook site because people kept asking her about it. So she put it on there and people post again from all over the world. And what you do in this process is you take the things out, but instead of like in raku, it goes into a trash can, it goes into a large container of water. And inside this water, she has you put in yeast, flour, and a little bit of sugar. So it ferments, kind of like when you're making bread. So when you're making bread, it'll do the same type of thing. You'll get that bubbly stuff. You take the piece out at 1800 degrees and you then submerge it in. A couple of things I found out about it. One thing is you can't use traditional raku tongs, which you grab the piece and kind of drop it into the can very carefully, because when you try to put it inside the water, there's this pushback because it's a very hot thing in the cold water. So I then went to somebody and had tongs made. I had professional tongs made that mimicked what I saw in Europe, the European tongs. So that was the first thing. In doing it, I found that most of the Overa artists that I saw on Facebook, they loved, as I do love, these patterns here, but when you do the research, as I was doing, and a little bit of side note on that, I was doing information, trying to find out as much as I could about the history of Overa, and in doing it, I found out that in Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, this is a common practice there. For them, it's a green ceramics. They were doing it. Some of them were getting these darkened patterns and were happy with that. But there was one guy in Belarus along with another, and they were getting this eye pattern. And I'm like, what the heck is this eye pattern? So I did research, again, more research, and paid for an interpreter to find out about, because I don't read Russian, to find out what all this information was. Come to find out, there's this medieval belief that the eye pattern has magic, and that people believe that if you get a vessel and it has this eye pattern on, you'll never run out of food. And again, if this is people in the backwoods that are living, it's important to them not to run out of food. Hence, I've made a line of piggy banks, because that way, if you wind up using the piggy bank and you feed it regularly, hopefully you won't run out of money. But, a little bit of a twist on that. But I think the eye pattern is real important because that does have some historical roots. The other thing is the guy in Belarus, I don't blame him, would not share how he got it. And I actually understand that now because it goes so viral on Facebook that if you did, everybody would be doing it and it would lose its meaning. Having nobody really know how to get it, and they're doing other things that darken it and singe the surface, that's nice. But if you're not getting the eye pattern, to me, you're missing the magic. So I'm looking for the magic is what I'm doing. Okay. So where I'm at now is, where you get ideas from, I don't know, but I've kind of made it my mission that I want to make 100 birds. Now I may make more than 100 birds, but my goal is to make 100 birds so that I'll have a large flock. Now each one won't be different. I do use plaster molds that are my own plaster molds. I design the bird and then I create a plaster mold for it. But if I can get a good 15, 20 different molds and then make 5 or 6 of each bird, I could get an entire flock. And then within that flock, my goal is to continue to play around with different solutions. I did find a pot in the Smithsonian that had a beautiful eye pattern. I did try to contact the people at the Smithsonian, was unsuccessful, but they did talk about an ingredient in the little blurb on it that I was like, ooh, makes sense. No, I'm not going to share it. But I did add that ingredient, and it does change things. I've also worked on fermenting it. I don't use regular yeast, which is what I did before. I went to BJ's, got yeast and put it in, and sugar. Now I use yeast that is in the air. I will put up my vat, I leave it out for a few days, and I let all the yeast that's in the air then just kind of come in, kind of like you do a sourdough bread. I've had very good results with that. So my goal is to have my 100 geese, look for the different eye patterns, see what I get, and if worst comes to worst, I have 100 beautiful birds. I would love people to come to Arts in Bloom, and in coming, my goal this Arts in Bloom is to at least have the firing going on the entire weekend. Whether or not I'll have 100 birds, that I know I won't. There won't be time for 100 birds. But I will have other things that are getting fired so that you can see the process. It is an addictive process. A friend of mine who did purchase a bird said, I'm not even into birds. And after seeing the process, I had to have one. Because you just, between the breakage, seeing things break, embracing the breaks, I don't know, you have to experience it to see, I guess, the worth and the beauty of it. So I hope people do come out to Arts in Bloom and they'll get to see me